Number 2, Penn State travels to number 6, Ohio State. Now, this game last year determined which team was headed to the Big Ten Championship, and we know how that all turned out. Isn't that right, Urban Crier? But this year, the wage is the same.
Yeah, and last year it was a little sad to see Penn State win the game, win the Big Ten, and still not even seem to be considered for the college football playoff, as Ohio State got in ahead of them even after the head-to-head loss.
Now, having an early advantage is always a plus, but Penn State takes this a step further. Not only do they get an early advantage, but they limit their opponents from getting an early advantage. Now, if you look at all the opponents this season, they've scored 0 points in the first quarter, while Penn State has scored a total of 90. That's 90-0 for Penn State in the first quarter. This just demonstrates how great their defense is. They limit their opponents to 168 passing yards and 115 rushing yards for a total of 283 yards. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's one of the more impressive stats in all of college football. In this day and age, limiting teams, especially their total yards in garbage time when you're playing your third and fourth string defensive players, still keeping those numbers down is really impressive for Penn State.
And they also only allow 9.2 points per game as well.
Yeah, which is also one of the top in all of college football. Ohio State, they're definitely looking to break the trend. They're looking to come out early, come out with a bang. JT Barrett, hopefully, he's been able to improve each and every week this season. He's been a huge leader for this team. His on-field play hasn't always been the best, especially in weeks 1 and 2, but ever since that loss when Oklahoma came into Columbus and handled Ohio State pretty easily, he's really improved. Granted, their opponents haven't necessarily been the best, but that being said, the timing, the 3-step drops, getting the ball out on time, that's something that even in practice you can see improvement in. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. The Buckeyes have hit 500 yards in each of their last 5 games as well. As I was saying, not necessarily the most impressive stat when you consider their opponents, but they are one of the very few teams to do that in all of college football for 5 straight games so far this year. Barrett also gives himself 1,827 passing yards and 21 touchdowns on the year, and he's pretty smart with the ball. He's only thrown 1 interception, and I believe that interception was against Oklahoma when really just nothing was going right for this Ohio State football team. They also have an amazing special teams. That's one thing that Urban Meyer has always been good at. When he was at Florida, they had some of the best special teams possibly ever in college football, and he's really continued that tradition at Ohio State. They're second in the nation in kickoff returns. Their average field position off a kickoff return is on the 31-yard line, which helps a lot, especially against a team like Penn State, whose defense is really good at pinning you back deep in your own side of the field. That field position battle is going to be really important for Ohio State.
Penn State is also really good with special teams, with Saquon Barkley back in the backfield.
Yeah, he's pretty impressive no matter where you put him.
But Ohio State, their biggest weakness this season has been vulnerability. They've gotten caught off guard multiple times this season, allowing Indiana to hang with them for the first 3.5 quarters in the opening game this season, and then they lose to Oklahoma at home. Losing at home, especially in Ohio, is never a good thing.
For Penn State, one of their main weaknesses is not being on the field. If Saquon Barkley's not on the field, they're significantly less likely to score, as is the case with all All-American players, especially Heisman frontrunners. So for Ohio State, really controlling the pace of the game is going to be key for them. Their Penn State's defense has, they've created quite a few turnovers on the year, and it's something that they're really going to have to do again this week, as Ohio State doesn't turn the ball over very often. Ohio State's been pretty good at controlling the ball, and keeping Saquon Barkley off the field and limiting those explosive plays is going to be key to them winning this game.
For that reason, I chose a defensive player of the game, and his name is Jason Cabinda. When you've got 2 powerhouse offenses, the stronger defense will prevail most of the time. And Cabinda has snatched a total of 53 tackles, 4 for loss in addition to 2 sacks, and he's even helped create a few turnovers. That's what's going to be critical in this game, as Griffin mentioned.
And J.K. Dobbins for Ohio State. He's my key player for the game. He's a freshman, so, he's still got some inexperience. He doesn't have, especially in big games this year, he's only been in one, and that was their Oklahoma game. But so far, he's averaging 7.8 yards per rush. He has 775 yards on the year. He also has 5 touchdowns, which, isn't too impressive. But when you consider the fact that he's a freshman and all of the other weapons that Ohio State has, it's helped him out quite a bit. He's also a decent out of the backfield. He is 65 yards and averages just over 9 yards per catch. Look for him really in the flat to try and spread out this Penn State linebacker core and, get him off their run-heavy offense.
I have to say, I'm going to go with Penn State this game. I know it's going to be tough for them going into Columbus, Ohio, and playing in front of a Buckeye-favored crowd, but they haven't let their guard down like Ohio State has, not just once, but twice this season.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I think Penn State, they don't seem to have any weaknesses this year. At least we weren't able to really find any. They seem to be one of the top teams in all of college football, and I look for them to really make a statement in front of this college football committee right before the rankings come out.
That's all we have this week, but don't forget to tune in next week and go ahead and subscribe to our channel or watch some of the other videos we have for matchups this week. I'm Janae Muchmore.
And I'm Griffin Parkrose. Have a great college football weekend, guys.